In this presentation, we will take a look at month-end documentations that we may want to provide to our client if we're doing bookkeeping work, or that we may want to review ourselves if we're looking at this information from our own bookkeeping files. If we are doing bookkeeping for another client, it's important for us to do these reports, package these reports, give them to the client, either mail them to the client or give it to them in a PDF file, even though within the QuickBooks Online system, the client probably has access to these files or may have access to the files and therefore can print any reports they want at any given time. But the act of us putting it together and giving the report, so typically we would get the bank statement into the data, then we'll be able to generate the report at the end of the month, and then generating that report is basically saying, hey, look, I've done the work has been completed, here's the information. They may not need it at that point in time. They might for the decision making for that time period. But even if they're not using those month-end statements, it's really saying, look, I'm putting this stuff into the system. It will be there when you do need it, which will probably be at the end of the year for sure. And we'll give you similar documentation for that time period that you can then use for that year-end data that's necessary, especially for like tax preparation and things like that. So the main document that we're going to provide, of course, will be the balance sheet and the income statement or profit and loss. Those are going to be the main financial statements. Once we enter the data into the system, QuickBooks will, of course, generate, as we've been seeing, the balance sheet and the profit and loss report. We want to basically print those out, make sure that we give them to the client, if it be in a PDF file or some other format. We may want to customize them in some way. We may want to relabel or rename, for example, the profit and loss reports to an income statement report. That might look more professional, or customize it more towards our needs. We may want to customize it in some other ways as well, and that could differentiate us in the eyes of the client as well. We might have an accounts receivable detailed report. Again, we wouldn't have this if we're not tracking accounts receivable. And under a cash basis system, we wouldn't be tracking accounts receivable. We would have none, and there would be no accounts receivable. However, in that one scenario where we had a deviation and we said that we're going to enter invoices into the system, then we can at least track the receivables in the sense that these are the people that you invoiced. We can run a report and say, hey, look, these are the people that you have invoiced, and you can take a look at that and check to see if you've received payment for the people that you have invoiced. Again, we wouldn't have this report if it was just a cash basis system. And then we could have a deposit detail or check detail that we may want to provide, and we could say, hey, look, here's the detail of the deposits and checks that have been entered. Of course, they have that in a sense with the bank statement, because we're taking the stuff directly from the bank statement, putting it into the system. The bank reconciliation report is in essence another verification of the same thing, because we're taking that direct information and putting it right into the system. So the bank reconciliation report might be a good report to provide for that. And then any payroll information. Now, small clients may not have payroll. If there's no payroll, then of course we won't provide any payroll information. And if the payroll is done outside of our system, as we've discussed by like an ADP or a Paychex, then maybe we're acting as the person that is the middle person between the two parties, between the client and the payroll provider. And if that's the case, then of course we might work out with the payroll provider to be the middle person, to be the communication person that then gets the information from the payroll provider and gives it to the client. And that way we can kind of format it with all of our other information, and that could be useful. It just depends how you want to set up your relationship with the payroll provider, but it's nice to have a relationship with some type of payroll provider, and then you can set that up as long as you're transparent about it, about your relationship with the payroll provider with the client, so that they know when you give advice about payroll that you work with this person, and it's you can give them advice that's as transparent as possible. And if they want to do something else, they can do something else. But in any case, any payroll information, if you put it into QuickBooks, of course, then you can run payroll reports as well and provide that information. Again, I would recommend not doing payroll unless you're comfortable with it, possibly working with a payroll provider, in which case you can provide those payroll reports. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.